And I'm back! Bet you didn't think this video would be out this soon, did you? But as I said, I'm on break and plan on releasing a whole lot of content. So let's jump right into this video with Karna's abilities and noble phantasms. But first, quick, I forgot to let you guys know last episode that this does cover up to episode 22 in the anime, so if you haven't seen till there, just click off the video. So unlike Shakespeare, who had only one noble phantasm and a few skills, Karna is stacked with 4 noble phantasms and more skills than I honestly feel like counting. So let's start with the big guns, his noble phantasms, starting with the most obvious one, his golden armor and golden earrings. This is called Kavacha and Kundala, O sun become armor. You already know that this armor was meant to signify his godlike lineage, but it was his mother who brought it into existence because she had prayed for his son to be born with something that could confirm his heritage, and as such, Karna was born with the armor as part of his body, which you already knew made him invulnerable. Now, if you watched part 1, you know that the god of thunder Indra was able to steal this armor from Karna. But you're probably wondering that if it was part of his body, then how did he even manage to rip it from his skin? Well, for personal circumstances, while Karna was a child and training with the Hindu priests known as Brahmin, he made a promise to himself that he would never deny a Brahmin's request. So when Indra had disguised himself as one, Karna knew that he wasn't actually a Brahmin, but just the fact that he had the appearance of one meant that he had to oblige. You know how these heroic spirits are. Once they make a contract, they'll fulfill it to the best of their abilities. But yeah, even though Karna knew that it was a trap, he still released the armor from his body and handed it over. Although the armor was lost during his life, he still carries it with him in the Holy Grail War, and it essentially has the same effects as when he was alive, making him damn near invulnerable. It's a defensive type noble phantasm that protects him from pretty much all damage, whether it be physical or conceptual, by reducing the actual damage to around 10% of what it should be. If it was to have a weakness, it would be that it doesn't protect the inside of his body. So when Vlad had fought Karna and spawned the spears inside of him, it actually did a fair amount of damage to him. His next noble phantasm goes hand in hand with the armor. It plays off of the part of Karna's story in which he receives Indra's spear. The amount of nobility that Karna demonstrated as he handed over his armor knowing that it was a trap led to Indra feeling that the only right thing to do was to give Karna his spear as compensation. It's known as Vasavi Shakti, O sun abide to death. A spear that was so powerful that it was said to have never been handled properly, not even by the thunder god himself. The spear and armor tie into the legend that they came from because the spear can only be summoned once Karna permanently strips himself of his armor. So it's gotta be pretty worth it if he's planning on giving up invulnerability to fight with this spear. The power that is normally used in Karna's armor is transferred over to the spear and channeled into one attack only, but my god is it a powerful attack. It's said to have the ability to kill the gods themselves, granting it the title of not only an anti-army but also an anti-divinity noble phantasm, which is understandable considering it was a weapon created and used by a god. I had also mentioned in part 1 that this man can literally spawn a sun, and this is exactly what happens when he unleashes this attack. It's almost as if the only way to survive it is to have a lot of plot armor and a convenient noble phantasm handed over that negates almost every attack. But seriously, that's just me being a little bit salty. This attack is supposed to obliterate beasts, shields, fortresses, and bounded fields alike, but if it wasn't for Achilles' noble phantasm that had unique properties, then that fight would have been over right then and there. I'm pretty sure that the only thing that counters Karna's noble phantasm is Achilles' noble phantasm, so in a way, you could say that Karna is even more OP than Gilgamesh. And it's not like Gilgamesh could even pull out this weapon from his Gate of Babylon, since it technically never existed in the real world. Karna died before he could ever get to use the spear in battle, so any mention of it is just myth. His third is called Brahmastra Khandala, O Brahma, curse me. And it goes hand in hand with his mana burst skill that puts magical energy into his weapons. This magical energy usually takes the form of flames that can spawn inside his body and emit outward and transfer to any weapon that he holds. This noble phantasm increases the range and area that his mana burst skill can affect, as well as provides for a projectile type explosion that is on the same scale as a nuclear bomb. In order to use it though, Karna would have had to drop his armor and deploy the Vasavi Shakti, so you won't typically see this unless it's in a final fight type situation. Then there's his fourth, called Brahmastra, O Brahma, cover the earth. Karna opens his right eye, calls upon the god Brahma, and emits what's essentially a Cyclops-style laser beam from it. It's a focused version of his mana burst skill where instead of emitting flames from everywhere, it's channeled and projected in a small, powerful burst. This attack doesn't work when fighting someone who's stronger than him because, as he was cursed in his legend to die helplessly against an equal opponent, the same curse limits this attack. But considering that there are a few servants that are actually stronger than him, at least that I know of anyways, then I think he should be fine. Now, what about his other abilities? He has a skill that is directly related to being known as the hero of charity. It's called the Discernment of the Poor, and it lets him determine the true character and motives of other people. So that's an interesting fact to know, considering that this lets him see right through Shiro's lies and deception and determine what his true plans are. Meaning that if Shiro truly had sinister intentions, then Karna most likely would have done something about it. Simply put though, it's a built-in lie detector, and it comes from his years of observing the people of the lower class that he was brought up with. Yet another example of how the legends mold a servant. Then it's not like Karna needs it, but he also has magic resistance as a standard for any Lancer class. He also has the riding skill, much like many of the other Knight class servants. Then he has what's called uncrowned martial arts, which makes his skill and ability seem weaker than it actually is, unless his true name is determined. I think that's more of a skill for the game, so not really relevant in the anime, considering that he just freely introduces himself as if he cares whether or not people know his true name. The man just wants to throw hands in a fair fight for the ages. Now, all these skills and abilities are nice and all, but if his master wasn't Shiro, the amount of magic that would be needed to sustain any type of fight would be monumental. It's mentioned that a top-rate mage wouldn't even be able to keep Karna's basic mana burst skill activated for more than 10 seconds. I'm not entirely sure how viable Karna would be in a normal Holy Grail war, but it's still interesting to consider how each of these servants fit into their role in the show so conveniently. It's like putting together the pieces of a puzzle, because if you bring in someone as OP as Karna, you gotta bring in someone who can support his existence, and if you don't plan on having him win the war, then you have to bring in someone who can counter him. Anyway, that's Karna's capabilities in a nutshell. We pretty much got to see it all in action in episode 22, so I think if you were to watch that fight over again, things would make a bit more sense, since we never really got anything explained to us in terms of Karna's story or strength. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to help decide who I cover in the next episode, then go vote on the poll under the community section. So until next time, ciao!